Part 2, which was to inquire in my school or district context to find a representative example of curriculum mapping that cuts across grade levels or courses. Share one example of what you find in the response. So, curriculum mapping in my school. Well, in my district, this process I would say is probably not very thoroughly done. And if it does exist, it is not one in which I've taken part, and so that still makes me think that it's probably not thoroughly done. At the beginning of both school years that I have been with my district, we've been allotted about 10 days of professional development before school starts and about 2 following the end of the school year. Obviously, my first 2 years have been a bit untraditional, so perhaps my experience isn't reflective of reality. But so far, we've used these 10 days of professional development at the beginning to do the work of preparing for the upcoming school year. During these days, myself and the other English teachers I work with, we've looked back on the previous year and kind of thought reflectively, okay, what worked well? What seemed to get a lot of engagement? Where did we see a lot of success? Where did we not see so much success? Is it because it came at the point that it did? Do we need to rearrange our timeline? Things of that nature. We adjust our pacing guide then in response to our reflections, and then we move forward with planning. I have yet to experience real data analysis, standards correlation, or corrective measures when it comes to working with adjusting pacing guides to our curriculum maps. However, I will say that every week I do meet with the other English teachers in a professional learning community, and we analyze data that's been given to us through a program called iReady. And I provided this picture here for you. It's a screenshot of what that dashboard sort of looks like. But we use weekly instructional reports, growth assessments, and diagnostic scores to kind of give us real-time feedback on the areas that our students are growing and where they still need extra instruction. And so this picture here is an example of our growth assessment dashboard. And it's kind of difficult to see, and I apologize, but it talks about their progress to annual growth, saying how close they are to that, what their typical growth should be, and also what their stretch growth should be if they're behind. So this is what the growth assessment dashboard looks like, but we also have a dashboard that's similar in terms of their weekly instruction, and we can see how they're doing working within their own personalized learning pathways. So that is one way that we do analyze data and adjust our curriculum. It's not necessarily, I would say, in a map, but that would probably be the closest thing that I've experienced thus far. And so here's an example of that. This process is one that I think I would definitely like to see grow into that time that we have in the days following and leading into school years, because I definitely think that there's a lot of value in being a reflective teacher and being involved in the continuous improvement cycle. It's something that we expect from our students, so I think it should be something that we are implementing ourselves. So I do hope that it's just been this weird experience I've had teaching my first 2 years during COVID-19, and that it's not actually reflective of what we do as a district, but like I said, I haven't had the experience to tell me otherwise. And then finally, part 3 of question 4. Describe how curriculum mapping might be used in the transformation of school culture. So, good segue here. I snagged this image from the document that was called the feedback loop that was posted in our module. And I think that it's a good visual representation of how curriculum mapping can actually help transform school culture, because I do think that they are related. So schools, I mean, anytime you ask what is this goal of a school, schools all want to help foster a love of lifelong learning in their students. They want to help prepare students to be successful in the real world. And they want students, to feel loved and lead as good people. However, while many schools and teachers note this, seldomly do we honestly reflect upon and really reimagine our practices in response to both the data that we get from our students and the present reality of our ever-changing world. I think that Dr. Jacobs highlights this in one of her interviews that was also posted in our module that talks about the final phase of curriculum mapping. She says, "We work very hard to provide the best education we can, but the more I'm out there working, the more shocking it is to me how dated, how absolutely dated a lot of curriculum and a lot of our approaches are. And I see it in the maps. Clearly, if change is going to happen, curriculum mapping is where it has to start. And that means that we have to take a very long, hard look at our role in it first. So I think that if school cultures are to change, it has to begin with both the beliefs and the practices of administration and teachers. And what I mean by that is teachers have to genuinely believe that they're not perfect, that their practices could be better, that while one thing may have worked for a really long time, that time may now be over and something else needs to come take its place. There needs to be that, I think, honest reflection, that level of humility and reality for all teachers to look at that and not see it as a failure, but see it as part of the learning process and recognize that it is part of continuous improvement. And that has to be true with administration as well. Administration has to help guide that and counsel that. So I think that absolutely is where it has to start. So in the curriculum mapping process, it's about reflecting on what went well, what did not go well, where did we fail, where do we need to be better. And I think that just that process then creates that continuous improvement in that attitude that is infectious. Students will never be prepared for the real world, feel that their work is rewarding, or truly see the value in continuous learning if we don't begin to embody that ourselves. It has to start with us. We have to believe that. And if it does start with us, if we create relevant, rigorous, and responsive curriculum that actually engages our students in learning, then that's where we'll see success, and that's going to be a product of our true learning and reflection. And so I think that that's where we see school culture really change. And so when we look at this feedback loop, I think that, students get regular and specific improvement points that they need so that learning is informed. But I think that this is where we're kind of getting stuck. I think it's a one-way loop. And I don't think that there's as much adaptation as there should be. I think that Jacobs is right. We do work very hard to be responsive, but are we doing it to the level that we should be doing it? I think that's where we need to take pause and really look inwards. So here is my thought-provoking question for you all. Do you think that the education that you personally received in school has prepared you for the day and age that we live in currently? What were some of the most transferable skills that you learned, and how could they be improved with the addition of media literacy? So that is my question for you. And here are my references. Get out of the way here. And thank you so much for watching.